Casey. How's it going, my man?
Hey, we look like
Here
we
we
look like
are.
twins.
I just need to grow up my beard a little bit.
Is it too early for? Is it too
I
early
tell
for
you what,
sunglasses?
it's a little bit early, but this it feels oddly comfortable. It's fine.
I feel like Larry David said the only people that wear sunglasses in the morning are blind people and assholes.
Well, sadly,
So,
I'm not blind, so I'll fall into the latter
yeah,
category.
neither am I. So I guess that leaves us. That leaves us where it leaves us.
Well, look, thank you very much for taking the time today. This is awesome. I had such a a fun
No
fun
problem.
time with
I'm
Black
in the
Friday.
middle of. Great. I'm in the middle of dropping my kids off at school, so you have to bear with me with like the driving and the
Yeah,
weird
yeah, yeah.
camera
Well, I mean,
angles.
do you want me to give you? I can give you a little bit if you need a little bit of time. I can get you when you're not driving, man.
No, no. I mean, if you don't mind it, I don't mind it.
Oh, okay, all right. Just don't want you to be distracted there. No, okay, yeah, that's not a
No,
problem.
there's a bunch of police up here too. So if I get pulled over, well, I'll just let you know.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. All right.
You
Well,
should be good.
yeah,
You
okay.
should be good.
Let's start here, as far as with the new movie and all and even with your work, with musicians and different things like that. Now seeing your work, your films on big screens, bring us back to your local movie theaters and maybe even a local video rental shop and seeing some poster and cover art. What were some early posters and movie covers that drew you in?
I have a very vivid memory of this. Actually, I don't remember what year it was. You'd have to look it up. But there was a weekend in the mid late '80s where there was a Terrence and Howie Mandel movie called One Fine Day, and my buddy's father was taking us to the movies. And he was like, "Oh, we're gonna go see One Fine Day. We're gonna go see One Fine Day." And right next to it in the newspaper. I mean, I'm old, so I remember newspaper ads. There was a thing that said it was an ad for The Fly, and it said, "Be afraid, be very afraid." And I was like, "Okay, well, that's clearly the movie I want to see." And I think I was like 9 or 10, and we snuck out to see The Fly, and it was it was horrific, So
Oh my
that's
God.
one of the earliest memories I have.
Oh my Lord. So no, I know that you were mentioning too, as far as that you didn't have a theater that was very close by. So was it something that it was, it was a special treat for you guys to be able to get out to the theater then?
I mean, I grew up in the sticks in Massachusetts, about 30 minutes, directly in between like Boston and Providence. So there's not much there other than like fishing boats and, junkies. So the nearest theater to us was maybe 30 minutes away. And it was a weird theater as far as distribution goes, because they would have some blockbusters, but they would also have these strange fringe B movies. I remember, and I've told this story before, I just think it's hilarious. Joe Lynch, who directed Everly and
Hmm.
recently Point Blank on Netflix, I will send him random screenshots and stuff. And I'm like, what's this? What's this? And I'm like, do you remember this movie, Treasure of the Four Crowns? And he was like, I don't. And it was a random, like, 3D Indiana Jones ripoff movie. And like, we went to see that. Like, who goes to see that movie, But on top of like all the classics, whether it's Alien or Predator, there was a cinema called Cinema 140, and I don't think it's there anymore. And on top of that, I didn't get cable till I was, I think, almost graduated high school. So, because it just didn't come to suburban Massachusetts. And, we had this weird set box top thing. It was like a precursor to HBO. It was called
Had
Preview.
like the Switch.
Yeah. And
Okay.
they had weird movies like UHF, Kentucky Fried Movie, Hot Dog the Movie. So there was a healthy dose of just seeing, the great but terrible B movie shit when I was growing up.
Yes, and I know I've heard you mention some of those movies too, and it brought to mind things like Schlock and Joysticks and some of the earlier, 70s real slapsticky, horror movies too that they had going for a while. And I
Yeah.
always loved that stuff too. I
Well,
mean, that was always
it's fun.
awesome.
It's funny. I can't divulge too much information, but somebody reached out to me about 2 weeks ago, and they're interested in not remaking. They're interested in doing a sequel slash spiritual follow up to a very well loved late '80s B movie, and I'm like, I mean, the idea this person has for this film is so fucking funny and fun. I'm just not sure that I
Oh
can.
man.
I'm just not sure I can say no. So
Oh dang.
that
That's awesome.
to be determined. If it ends up coming to fruition, I'll put some sort of press thing out in a couple months. But the idea is just so great. The original movie it wasn't a huge. It's funny. I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he was like, "Please tell me it's They Live. Please tell me it's They Live." And I'm like, "No, it's not that big. It's not that big. That's a classic,
Hmm.
But the movie that was brought to me is if you look it up on Google or Amazon, like it's very well loved. So, but it's one of those late '80s
Dang.
really terrible, awesome B movies.
That is perfect. And I love that too. I mean, out of the fact of it kind of brings up the thought of, with bigger remakes and different things, there are so many movies out there that have great ideas that just weren't pulled off very well, or maybe they didn't have the budget to do so, to
Sure.
where, like there's lots of stuff out there that you could actually, hey, I'm going to take this idea and actually make it what it was, what maybe the spirit behind it. So I love that. That'll be sick. Looking
Yeah, I
forward
was
to
talking.
that.
I did an interview in the UK with Bob Kurtzman, who did all our special effects and
Yeah.
makeup,
Yep.
and somebody was like, what do you guys want to do next? And Bob said one of the reasons he wanted to work on Black Friday was because he got to sort of, it lends itself to him being creative and coming up with original ideas for the creatures and stuff. And if somebody's asking you to do, I just saw recently that the dude who directed all the Spider-Man movies is rebooting Final Destination, and that's great. And I love the originals, but that's just how our
Oh,
industry
really?
is now. Yeah, yeah. What's his name?
John Watts?
Yeah, I think so. It could be Mark Webb. It could be one or the other.
Okay.
He's they're rebooting Final Destination, which I get it. These studios look at the money that Scream's going to make, and you have to realize,
Oh
like,
man.
I have kids, okay? My sons are 13 and 11, and my 11-year-old particularly is obsessed with horror movies. He's obsessed with this guy James A. Janisse on Dead Meat, and
Okay.
he told me the other day that he's like, "Oh man, James is getting married and he's taking a break. Like I can't handle it, But the reason I'm bringing it up is because the studio, if you have kids talking about the Scream movies on TikTok and on Instagram, you are getting hundreds of millions of dollars in free advertising. So
Yeah.
as soon as, and forgive me if I'm mixing this up, whether it's Watts or Webb, announce that they're doing a Final Destination remake, you're going to get all this internet chatter about, well, the original was the best, and then it went downhill after that, and then someone's going to be talking about Devon Sawa and how much they love him, and it feeds the machine. And it's
Yeah.
like when when they released this image of Paul Dano as the Riddler, like the amount of internet talk that goes on just because of that costume, nobody's like, hey, let's see the black tie and white shirt that the Tom Cruise The Firm remake is getting, because nobody gives a shit about that. But when you're dealing with Batman and Harry Potter and like this intense fandom,
Yeah.
it's free advertising.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
And I never put that, together as far as, with the newer Scream coming out, and then all of a sudden they announce something with Final, that it is kind of one of those things for, to capitalize on everybody jumping on and being like, oh, well, either you're going to love it or not love it. But yeah, that's
Well,
yeah,
it's
smart.
you have to realize this is a business, and we just
Yep.
got an email last night about how Black Friday's been doing, and it's been doing great, and we're all very happy. And somebody wrote an article, I think, for Slash Film or something. It was like, will Black Friday get a sequel? There's literally only one fucking reason that a movie gets a sequel. Did it make money? If a movie
Mm,
made money, it will get a sequel. You know what I
mm.
mean? So it's like I know Joe had some issues with Knights of Badassdom, but I do think that E1, who was the distributor, wanted to make a sequel. So it goes to show you, man, like
Dang.
it's all about the money, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And if that comes to, I mean, that's awesome. But I also love, if something's a standalone story and that's just, the story that's to be told and, move on from there. Either way, that's awesome. I love that.
I do too, and you have to wonder if audiences. I mean, I think audiences still love those one-off of movies. Like, it's tough. It's tough to say how truthful Amazon was being when what's the Chris Pratt alien movie?
Oh, yeah. Tomorrow War or
Yeah,
the War of Tomorrow?
I mean,
Yeah.
just a great, fun fucking J.K. Simmons, like just a fun one-off movie, and like it supposedly did really well for Amazon. It probably did, but it just seems like, man, why can't we have more of those?
Yeah, totally.
That's what I wonder. The thing I've also noticed, and I've people that have seen my interviews probably are sick of me talking about this, but when you're dealing with a younger generation and they're into things like Five Nights at Freddy's or Minecraft or whatever, like that's what that generation, my kids' generation, are into. They
Hmm.
don't. That's why they like the Tomorrow War. They don't really care about the Matrix. That's Dad's movie to them.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, so it's like if my old man was sitting around watching fucking Bonanza, I don't want to watch Bonanza. So if I'm watching the Matrix, they're like, Dad, you're old and you wear jeans. Like, we don't want to see that. So
That is so funny. My boy is 13 and watched Black Friday with us, and I mean, absolutely loved it. And that was one of the things where some of like the bears and stuff, he was like, "Man, I kind of wonder if it's gonna be like a Five Nights at Freddy's type thing." And
yeah,
wasn't
right.
disappointed that it wasn't, but I mean,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
absolutely loved it too. So I can see that. I can say that the youth is definitely into the movie as well.
yeah. That's great.
Speaking of that, as far as upon discovering horror, at a younger age, tell us about an irrational fear possibly that a horror movie introduced and how or if you got over it.
There's I think that if you got deep into this question and you got into some evolutionary science, you could talk about how do you think people would have actually reacted to going in the ocean if Jaws had never come out. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
I mean, I think there's a lot of people who have that story. Like, well, once I
Yeah.
saw Jaws, I was like, fuck that, I'm not going in the water. That
Yeah.
just shows you. That just shows you how Spielberg is the greatest ever.
Yeah.
You know, that's an interesting question for me personally, and I'm going to tell you why. And people can think I'm full of shit, but I don't really care. I've been in therapy sessions where I've asked my therapist, like, is it normal that I don't have a lot of nightmares? Like, I never have nightmares. And she's like, no, you just have a clean conscience. And I was always more scared, believe it or not. I was never scared of Freddy. I was never scared of Michael Myers, because I don't know. That stuff never resonated with me. But what I was scared of, and I don't know why, I was fucking scared to death of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Scared to
Oh
death.
man.
When those aliens
Yes.
get off the ship and that one had the long arms, I was like, no, no. And even E.T. to some extent, when he was like all white and dried up in the river, I was like, this is bad, man. I don't like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I don't know that anything gave birth to some sort of irrational fear. I never really had that sort of reaction to any horror movies specifically.
Okay. Okay. And
Yeah.
at the outer space and like have you ever seen Fire in the Sky? You remember
Oh,
that movie?
that's the same thing, man. Same thing. Like I don't
That's
maybe it's because I didn't grow up with any religion, so I never like watched The Exorcist and was like, oh, because I think a lot of religion and I think a lot of depression and things that people harbor on has been given birth from having guilt.
sure.
And there's a wild turkey running across the street. And I was not raised Catholic, so I think I have a different perspective on that stuff. You know what I mean? And it never sort of shook me. To see a guy like Freddie, I was always like, well, that's fun. or Michael Myers. That's kind of fun. I just
Hmm.
never. But for some reason, for me personally, outer space is like the big unknown. You know,
Yeah,
I think
totally.
underwater stuff for me is probably scarier than Freddy, Jason, or Michael because if you get stuck underwater, like you don't know what the fuck's down there for real. So that could be part of it for me.
Okay, I love that. That's a great answer, and I'm right there with you too. Water and outer space has always been a bigger thing, for myself as well. Serial killers, different things. It's kind of spooky, but it would be more so of like a strangers type situation where you have somebody breaking into your house for absolutely no reason, and just being on absolute bullshit. I agree.
I I also think that real people are scarier than some of these classic horror monsters.
Yeah.
You think of a movie like Mommy Dearest or whatever, or
Oof.
even There Will Be Blood to some extent. To just see a man who's so just dying to do nothing but shut everybody out of his life and just become this rich hermit.
Mm,
That's extremely sad and depressing, but there are people like that,
hmm. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think maybe
Yeah.
things that are a little more real to life are scarier to me.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So as far as with touching a little bit more on Black Friday and practical effects being a prominent role in the movie, tell us about a use of practical effects outside of the horror genre that made an impression on you. So you have things like from Indiana Jones and maybe the RoboCop effects that you had in that movie. What are some things outside of horror that stick out to you?
Well, it's a strange thing because I'm not here to like hypothetically, not to be crass, I'm not here to like blow anybody who makes practical effects, but you see a movie like Fury Road come out and how the audience reacts to that and how amazing it is. And
Sheesh.
you know, um, I don't know John Krasinski personally. We have mutual friends, but A Quiet Place was a great movie. It was a huge hit, but when those monsters came on screen, it completely took me out of the movie because you have to
Mm,
realize. I think it's hilarious that like Ryan Johnson and what's his DP's name? Steve Yedlin. They like have this ongoing joke on Twitter and Instagram about shutting off your motion smoothing. Like I'll go to my mother's house and try to shut it off. I'll go to my friend's house and try to shut it off. In all the years I worked for Aerosmith, Steven Tyler would call me from hotel rooms and be like, "It looks like a Spanish soap opera. How do I shut this motion smoothing off?" Like, but my point is with that and CGI is when you're working in a film and you have a guy like Kurtzman making monsters and your cinematographer is lighting that monster and you're filming the monster in the scene, it's all the same material.
yeah.
It's got depth like wood. But when you're shooting a background and then putting a monster in it like A Quiet Place, that's like slapping a piece of formica on top of wood because what happens is you have all these new TVs, 4K, 8K, LED, OLED, whatever, different black levels, and like you can't ever seem to get the color grading to match. Sometimes the CGI has like a touch more gray and then the rest of the picture, and I think it looks like shit unless you're dealing with $200 million and you're making the Civil War fight in the airport where everything is CGI and it looks fucking incredible. I have no problem with CGI, but I do have a problem with using CGI in places where you could have used practical because I also think that you're kind of giving the shaft to these craftspeople. Like there's a lot of talented
Yeah.
people out there who make amazing practical effects. Why would you not want to employ them?
Hmm.
It's like going on stage without a drummer. You use a drum machine, which sucks. To me, to me.
There's an ingredient of the spirit that gets taken out of it for sure.
Yeah, it's called humanity. Yeah.
Oh god, yeah, and I mean that was one of the things that I definitely appreciated about this movie, and I didn't know that that was what I was going into with Black Friday. But just upon seeing the initial guts on the floor, it's like, oh, all right, this is
Yeah,
gonna take a cool fucking turn here. Yeah,
yeah.
I appreciate the shit out of that.
That was Marcy. That was Bob's wife, Marcy. She was like our, I don't know, in the credits, she's like, right number two, right behind Bob, but like she was like straight up the blood and guts person, just dumping guts and shit on everything. Yeah. She did a great.
Awesome, awesome. I love that. All right, so as far as something fun like Halloween, the opportunity to be able to dress up like someone else, or to be able to put on a mask for a day and put on a fun costume. Tell us about something that comes to mind as far as maybe either in your youth or as of recent with the kids dressing up as a character from a movie or television.
Adulthood has been tough for me because I have a beard and I also have really long hair, so I either got to do like Barbarian or Hagrid or thank God for Infinity War because now I can be Fat Thor in a bathrobe. Um, half like Thor the dude. When I when I was in my 20s, Halloween for me in my 20s was an interesting time because I always picked the most random shit. I have a great picture that I show to people all the time of full me without my beard, full head to toe yellow paint dress, giant blue hair, full Marge Simpson one year, and it was like I
Oh
won
my
a
God.
costume contest. Um, there's a famous gas tank on off the highway in Boston. It's the old Boston Gas, and it's like white with like these paint like swooshes over it, and I went as the Boston Gas tank one year for Halloween. Maybe the wrong guy to ask about Halloween costumes.
Oh shit, I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, how did the gas tank get pulled off? Did you have like a
Oh,
cardboard box or something
I bought
around
a
you?
trash barrel and cut the top and painted my body white. But I will say, in the last couple of years, because I'm a dad, Boston and Rhode Island have incredible Comic Cons, and my kids have gone. We've been going for 5 years or so, and like one year, my one son dressed up as Deadpool in the morning. He had like makeup with the Deadpool mask pulled up with the bathrobe. My other son went as 8-bit Jason, which I didn't even know was a thing. It's like
Oh damn.
Jason from the video game. He's like blue and
Yeah.
purple. He like dyed all his clothes purple. He painted a Jason mask aqua blue. I was like, what is going on here? But
Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
8-bit Jason. And one year, one of my kids went as one of the characters from Overwatch. So we definitely enjoy the Comic Cons to sort of extend that Halloween spirit at different times of the year.
Yeah, I love that. That's one of those things too that I generally will reach out and mention something about, because there's not everybody celebrates Halloween, and so that'll be one thing where it's like, hey, does your family? And then I dug in a little bit into your pictures and saw some things with your boys there dressed up. So I was like, oh, okay, we're good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Love it.
Uh, so working with someone like Michael J. White and him, playing Spawn, obviously, a really cool role and something that he's done in the past brought me back to the love that I had for the Spawn soundtrack. If you had the opportunity to assemble a dream soundtrack for your next movie, what three bands would you love to have an original track from?
That's a great question. I've been lucky. My first movie, Happy Birthday, was a little $500,000 indie, and I got Robert DeLeo, who's the bass player and principal songwriter from Stone Temple Pilots. He did all the music for that,
Yeah, okay.
and it's incredible. And for this one, I wanted something that was a little more sort of whimsical and Chris Columbus-y. So we got Patrick Stump from Fall Out Boy, who did all the music for this one, all
Mhm.
original music, and he also wrote A Christmas Carol. But if I could, that's an interesting question, and I'll tell you why. I love the band Mastodon, but they did a
Ooh.
soundtrack for Jonah Hex, and like that movie did not do well. And I don't know whatever happened to the soundtrack. So that's a tricky question. If I could pick
Mm.
one band, um, I would maybe pick Jane's Addiction or the
Ooh.
Mars Volta because their music is like it's like Santana meets Rage Against the on acid, and um, I think that they could make some. They'd probably be better off suited working with someone like Jodorowsky, but that's a great question. Um, there's so many talented musicians and bands out there. I would go Jane's Addiction, Mars Volta, and maybe somebody super esoteric like The Weeknd or somebody like that, you know?
Oh yeah, okay. And I mean Mars Volta, they have, that kind of sound about them too, where there's a lot of times it feels like it's score-esque. There's
Mhm.
just different atmospheres that they kind of go in with their stuff where it's like, oh yeah, I could see that in an introduction or yeah, some sort of an insane fight battle going on.
Yeah, I've listened to their albums a million times, and I always thought, man, what great music that Cedric and Omar would make for like some sort of sci-fi epic, you know, sci-fi
Yeah,
action epic,
totally.
but just extremely cerebral. So that's one of the things I love about them.
Awesome, awesome, nice. Yeah, so before professionally being involved in film, you cut your teeth with making home movies with your friends. Tell us about some of the parodies that you had made with them, and what parts you felt like were successful reimaginings that you guys pulled off.
Oh man, we, growing up in the middle of nowhere, a lot of the stuff we did was like, God, the dumbest shit, just dumb teenage, like, I mean, like, it was more like before Austin Powers, like weird, shitty James Bond, but like the guy was like in a suit that was like 5 sizes too small, and he drove like a shitty Toyota Corolla, and he was like going to Home Depot to pick up lumber or something. Like just the dumbest pot smoking 16-year-old shit you could think of. But I mean, so much fun because it's total freedom, you know?
Totally.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
It brought to mind because that was exactly like that was how my friends and I passed time when we were, in school, and it was the weekends or whatnot, or had free time was remaking, Evil Dead 5 or remaking,
yeah,
I remember The Village had come out and my two buddies were absolutely disgusted with the movie and I actually liked it. So they were like, well, we have to, we can make a little bit of it, to where it's kind of fun, but the rest of it we're gonna bash on it because we fucking hated it.
right, right. That's hilarious.
So I loved hearing you mention that because I was like, God, that brings me right back to, kind of going in. I don't work in film now, but as far as having those things and having some of the funny ideas and pulling them off with your friends, that's
Yeah,
great fun for sure.
that's
Um,
hilarious.
if there was anything that you could bring back today or even remake with the knowledge that you have today with your friends and bring them onto a set, is there anything that comes to mind that you would love to rehash?
I was in the movie theater a couple times this year to see all the big tent poles, and my sons were more excited about Jackass than anything. So
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know that anybody could ever top what Johnny Knoxville did with his friends. So I think that's a pass. That question's a pass for me because I feel like he has taken the, hey, I'm gonna do some shit with my friends and just blow everybody out of the water.
Yeah, touche. I can appreciate that.
Yeah, if I could remake anything, I would. It's funny. It's like you want to do as much original material as you can, but you have to remember that these studios are looking to rehash old IPs or remake things. I would obviously do anything I could to remake either They Live or Big Trouble in Little China because those two movies to anybody
Jeez.
our age are huge. So I think those are the two that I would. I don't know if I would have my friends anywhere near the set, but I would love to do those.
Okay. All right. I always wonder if somebody redid They Live, if they would include another new reimagining of the 9 minute fight scene or whatever the hell it was, however long that part was, but that part
I
was
don't
always so
think I don't.
ridiculous.
I don't know, man. That's the tough thing about remaking movies like that is like those movies are such a snapshot of magic. Um,
Yeah.
it's like The Thing was one of my favorites, and I was always hesitant to watch the prequel, which was like 2014 or whatever, and so many people shit on that movie. And I was like, all right, I really like Mary as an actress, and I was like, I'll watch it. And there was some shoddy CGI, but I actually really, excuse me, really really enjoyed it. Um,
Okay.
and you can't. I mean, here's the thing: is like you can't, dude. If Sony or whoever owns the rights, Lionsgate to either Big Trouble or They Live, called me tomorrow and was like, "Hey, we want you to we like what you did with Black Friday. We want you to do a remake of They Live." Like you're already up against the pressure of having everybody who loves that movie be like, fuck you, you can't ever top it. And of course you can't, you know?
Yeah, right.
You have to just make it your own. I think one of the most interesting things in the last 10 years of cinema was when Marvel, because I think this is the first time this has ever happened. Nobody ever talks about this. The third Thor movie, which Taika directed and wrote, is arguably the best Thor movie, and it's the third one. You know, they made Thor, then they made the Dark World, which is like on everybody's like shittiest Marvel movie ever made. It's like always last. And then Taika came along and made Thor his own thing, which I think if you're going to remake Big Trouble or They Live or anything, you have to sort of make it your own, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Because that's a tough spot to be in.
I think that's where some of the success comes from with those things too, or even thinking of something like The Hills Have Eyes, where obviously you have the original source material, but when that came out, I mean, truthfully, I liked the remake better than I liked the original movie, which is insane. I mean, I
Yeah.
never feel like that. But having, kind of going in and being like, I love the original material, I love the movie, I love Wes Craven, da 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 da. But I have an idea of what I would like to see out of this story, and push that from there. I think that's it's a big thing with a story that so many people have loved over generations, and will continue to love, but making it your own thing. I feel like that's a good approach. But
Yeah, and I think
outside,
that's also maybe where the Nightmare on Elm Street remake with Jackie Earle Haley kind of suffered, because they like the problem with that is like you're trying to remake maybe one of the most beloved horror movies of all time,
mhm.
and you still have the same fedora, the same red and green sweater, the same glove, and the same sort of burn makeup. And it's like,
Mhm.
if you're really gonna reimagine Freddy, like, dude, come out of left field, give him some sort of different sweater or a different kind of shirt or some jacket, change his hat up, like change the glove a little bit. Like, you can't try to redo what Robert Englund did and not have people go, well, fuck, that sucks.
It's too bad because Jackie Earle Haley is such a good actor
He's
too. I mean,
incredible. He's
I felt like
incredible.
he was perfect for that role, and yeah, I fell short, unfortunately.
I just think that you're shooting yourself in the foot by trying to completely just sort of, for lack of a better term, do a carbon copy of the first, which is, it's nearly impossible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. With yourself working on working with musicians and documentaries and music videos and specials and different things initially, what served as on the job training as far as when you're first kind of getting yourself transitioned into features?
I think the biggest thing, at least from books that I've read and conversations I've had with people, one of the things that directors struggle with working right away is having a repertoire or not being afraid of working with actors. When I did Black Friday, you're dealing with Campbell and Michael. Devin and I had already become. Devin is, he and I had already become friends. We've been texting, we've been chatting. So any level of like intimidation was gone. But dude, you're talking about Bruce Campbell, you know. So when you're talking about a guy who's as legendary as Bruce, there's an intimidation factor there. And I think that as soon as you walk into a room to have a collaborative relationship, and you're sort of either bowing down to the person that you're working for, then the power dynamics shift immediately, and that becomes a very
Mm,
tricky situation. And what I learned working with people like Katy Perry or working with people like Steven Tyler is they're just regular people, and everybody's got egos. You need to know when to fight for your ideas and when not to fight for your ideas. And one of the reasons I had worked for Aerosmith for so long was the first time I met Steven, I was just sort of on the fringe of that, working with that band. He came out of a dressing room in Boston, and he was like, "Hey, new guy, what do you think of my outfit?" And I was like, "You kind of look like my grandmother." Like, and he respected. He was like, and then he went and changed. And like, if you're honest with people and you tell them what you think, you can't just fucking yes people to death. Yo, yeah,
yeah.
that's great. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yep, sure. Then you're not gonna get anywhere. You know.
Oh man, yeah, that's I guess that would certainly establish a dynamic.
You just got to be honest. You know what I mean? Just got to be honest.
Oh man, I appreciate that. That's a great story. God, that is
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yep.
All
Yep.
right, so as far as Black Friday, digging into that bad boy here, initially I just wanted to start with, bringing us back to the first day on set, and what was filmed or what was accomplished on that first day there.
First day was the opening of the movie where we're in a pseudo Target or whatever, which is called Allmart. And the process of making the movie was we had a really good time. It was really fun. I loved 90% of the people that worked on the movie, but it was difficult because we shot it during COVID, so it was like just talk about like a fucking albatross. You know what I mean? It was super fucking stressful,
Yeah,
but it
man.
was we got through it.
And you had mentioned too that there was only like you could only have like five extras on set at a time, or just different constraints as far as that too.
Yeah, I think if we had made that movie in 2019, you would have seen that toy store riddled with hundreds and hundreds of people running around, which is there's nothing you can do about it now. You
Yeah,
had like
sure.
you were able to use like we had. I think SAG and IATSE was giving us one day to use 30 extras, and that was the opening of the store with people. Because I was like, well, we need the actual Black Friday rush, but after that, it was like you could only get 5 a day.
Oh, wow. Damn.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, and I can say as far as just watching the movie, there wasn't ever a feeling of it being underwhelming or having, like the environment there. So I can't say that you necessarily tell, but just out of, reading it and seeing some of your interviews with it, I was like, Jesus, I don't know how the hell they would have ended up managing that, but
Yeah.
pulled it off.
Yeah,
What,
thanks.
what was the final day there, the final shoot? What was the wrap on the movie?
The last day we shot was the Devin dropping off his kids and Chris Ryan Lee leaving his family on Thanksgiving, and that day got cut short because there was a blizzard coming. We also lost the day because of COVID. Our DP test didn't go through, so we lost like our second day of shooting. So it was a hairy shoot for sure.
Oof, man. So even in a sense, for this being some on the job training with, having to weave and bend through some of the issues that like COVID on top of film will present. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and on top
it's
of that,
tough.
they're like Adam McKay shooting "Don't Look Up" literally down the street. Fucking, we can't use smog, in our shoot because of COVID. Yet Adam McKay is down the street on a battleship, like lighting fireworks off, and I'm just like,
Oh my God.
well, if Netflix is gonna spend 200 million, they can do whatever the fuck they want.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yep.
See, some of those types of things, it seems like are as much, if not more frustrating than actually working on film. Seeing some of that stuff that, goes behind the scenes in business. I tip my hat, man, because some of that shit that sucks.
Yeah, yeah. You just gotta take it on the
Uh,
chin and move on.
oh, oh God. So as far as when prepping for a movie, with character study on top of, there being the monsters and the gore and, some of the silly aspects, I saw a character study, underlying to the movie there. Did you create any sort of, character history or points of reference for the actors on how we came to meet them, as an audience?
Well, when Andy first sent me the script, we didn't have the scenes where Ken dropped his kids off and or Chris had left his family. And I said, Andy, we need more with these people to see who they are and why we care about them. But as far as the actors go, I try to be a little more hands off when it comes to what the actor wants to do with the role. I can give, Stephen Peck had never done a feature before, and I was sending him bits of inspiration like uh, what's his name from Ghostbusters, Walter Peck,
Hmm.
or like the fucking I forget Chet was his name Chet from Real Genius, the bad
Oh,
guy.
okay. Yeah,
Like just a typical archetype '80s dickhead. Um, but Ivana had come up with this whole backstory about who Marnie was, and she had a younger sister, and like that's if the actors want to do that, then they should be able to do that because they know better than me what kind of process is going to lead them to the performance that they want to give.
Oh, sure. Okay. Okay.
So
So a little bit
all I can do on set is guide them and try to make them comfortable and cheer them on and root them on and try to get good performances, which I think we did. So mission accomplished.
for sure, for sure. And touching on Stephen Peck too, I had to say I had looked through his stuff and just I was not familiar with his work and on top of kind of an Avengers esque assembling of a cast there. Tell us
Yeah.
about casting Stephen and what as far as in his audition process really sold you for the part.
We needed an anchor for the movie, so we went with Devin first.
Mhm.
There was a list of guys like Johnny Knoxville, Dax Shepard, a couple others, and Andy and I
Oh,
wanted
really?
Devin. Yeah, Andy and I wanted Devin because he's he's more grounded. I think he's more grounded in believing that this guy is like a single dad who works at a toy store. Knoxville and Shepard are both fantastic, but they're slightly goofy. Um, and then we started filling in the spaces. Ivana was like always. I think when Andy sent me the script, she was like my number one. And then Campbell obviously was a dream come true. Michael was a weird thing. It was like we had this small role for Archie, and I emailed Devin's agent, who also reps Michael, and I was like, "Hey, do you think we could get Michael for like a week?" And he was like, "Well, let me find out." So he signed on. So the role, and Chris, obviously, Ryan Lee was, he was another one of those aha moments. We were watching Super 8 for the photography, and I was like, I wonder what Ryan Lee's doing. And we cast him as Chris. But to get to Steven, um, we got a lot of audition tapes, a lot from our casting director. And this was the one role that we had to audition to figure out who was going to be Brian. And there was a young man, I don't remember his name. His audition was incredible. He was Middle Eastern, Egyptian, something, but he was very handsome and very assertive and strong. And I just felt like he was too good looking almost to play Brian.
Okay.
And then there was a girl who is on a Netflix comedy. I forget which one it was. The casting director just threw her in as a curveball. She was also fantastic, and we almost cast her and changed her name to Brianna. But Steven, I saw his audition, and I was like, well, wait a minute, who is this? And the casting director was like, well, let's do a Zoom, and you can, direct him over the Zoom and see how he takes direction. And I mean, there was a lot of like, well, are you sure? Should we try other people? And I was like, no, that's who I want. Like, that's the
Okay.
guy. So I feel like my instincts paid off for that one. He just had this quality to me that was almost like when Rebel Wilson came out, it was like, wait, who's that? Who's this
Yeah.
person?
Okay.
And Steven to me was the same sort of thing. Like, wait a minute, where's this person been? Like, can
uh
I put them in my movie? So that's kind of how that happened.
That's awesome. I love that. And it was funny too, because you have these roles where obviously you see, like real familiar faces and you see him or I'm blanking on her name now, but who played Ruth, who's just absolutely this adorable yet, it really brings some
Yeah,
funny
Ellen.
laughs in there too. Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
yep, she's
Okay.
great.
Yeah, totally. So I mean, I totally, credit to the casting as far as having that bigger thing, but the bigger roles, but even the roles too that are attached along with and going through this process being hilarious and standing out in their own way. I love that. Um, what can you tell us about as far as working with PD? Jarrett, is it staff?
Yeah, yep.
Okay. What and what went into creating the store from page to screen?
Jarrett, it's funny. I thought about this the other day. Jarrett, I think, was the only crew person who like caught wind of Black Friday, and he like messaged me on Instagram, and he was like, "Hey man, are you making a movie in Massachusetts?" And I was like, "Yes." And he's like, "Oh, I'd love to throw my hat in the ring." And I watched one of the films that he had done. And the interesting thing about Jarrett is if anybody called me for a reference, I would say hire him immediately because he's incredibly talented. Jarrett is very quiet. He's very quiet. So when you're having
Hmm.
a conversation with him, he doesn't really engage. Like, you can obviously tell from this interview, like, I'm a loudmouth and I don't stop talking. Jarrett's very reserved and very quiet. And there was a point where I was getting nervous. I was like, I don't know if this kid is going to be able to pull through. And like, me and the producer were like, oh man, this is going to be a fucking nightmare. But like, dude, he fucking did it. Like, and to his credit, and to Becky, who was our set designer, they sourced out all of these, like, if you take your kid to go like to the arcade and you get the tickets and you win like the fucking stupid blow up snake or the stuffed alligator, that toy store was basically filled with that kind of cheap shit, because we don't have the budget. We don't have the
Yeah.
budget. We don't have the budget to get real toys. And we tried to talk to Hasbro, which is in Providence, which is close to where we shot. They weren't going to help us. So
Oh yeah.
those
Okay.
guys did a great job.
Man, that's great. That's great. And it was one of those things too where, it felt very much like like a real toy store, a Toys R Us type situation. And I was just like, man, that must have been fun, trying to.
The building was an old Babies R Us.
Okay. Oh my God. Was there still stuff in there, that kind of assisted along, or was everything out?
Well, there was some shelving and stuff, but we had to dress the store. One of my favorite Letterbox or IMDb reviews was like, this fucking movie sucks. You can tell they shot it in some dumb fucking warehouse. I'm like, actually, it's a baby. So
I tell you what, man, that's one of those things. I appreciate some of the things like a Letterboxd or IMDb, but I've had some movies recently that I've watched, especially that have the highest ratings and just highest praise, and I go and I watch them, and I'm like, what what is happening?
out with a
And
friend.
then likewise, on the contrary, with people absolutely shitting on something and then watching it and be like, that was good. What did you see?
I was out with a friend of mine. She's a writer. She writes for the New Yorker and stuff. I was having a drink with her on Monday, and she was like, I read some bad reviews from Black Friday. Does that bother you? I was like, I don't give a shit. Like, dude, at this time, Black Friday came out. We were dealing with like the new James Bond, the new Matrix movie, Don't Look Up, and it's like half the people fucking love it, half the people think it's a piece of shit. Half the people love Bond, half the people think it's a piece of shit. Some people fucking love, like, dude, it is what it is. I mean, everybody that loved Black Friday loves those types of movies, loved that we made sort of an 80s throwback practical effects monster movie. And the people that didn't like Black Friday were the people that wanted to see Bruce Campbell and Michael Jai White fucking kill a bunch of monsters. And it's just not that movie.
Yeah. I touching on that, I can say, actually, I feel like this was, and I'm trying to draw back to other roles, and I don't want to be a dick and put myself out there, but I felt like this was one of the first times that I saw Bruce Campbell outside of a typical, kind of like character that comes in and very Ash-esque and was pulled off. I loved it, honestly. I thought that was so cool that I was like, oh, he doesn't have to come in and do this same exact, kind of show pony type thing that he's done over and over. He kind of is reluctant and kind of fearful in a sense, hiding behind the bathroom door. And I'm like, I can dig this. This is sick.
No, I mean, when we offered him the role, he called me and he was like, Mr. Tebo. And I'm like, yep. He's like, all right, I have two stipulations. He's like, one, he goes, if one of your crew is like fixing a light bulb while we're rehearsing, he goes, I'm going to get upset. And I was like, I said, I don't let that happen. He goes, number two, I'm not coming to Boston to play Ash. I was like, well, I think you can tell from the script that that's not what we want. And the crazy thing about it is, how shitty is it that Bruce did such an amazing job in this role? And I was on like a Facebook Bruce Campbell fan club, and they're like, fuck this movie, where's the chainsaw? I was like, well, wait a minute. Are you a Bruce Campbell fan or are you an Ash fan? Because that's what that sounds like to me. This guy goes out of his way to do something outside the box and fucking kills it and is amazing, and you're going to shit on that? Like, dude, go die. Get the fuck out of
here. Yeah. I'm trying to think, because there was Intruder. There's obviously been different stuff. The crime show that he was on TV too. I'm trying to think of what the hell that
he was
good in that too. Burn Notice. Jesus
Yeah,
Christ. I couldn't think of
fucking
what the hell
great.
it was called. Yeah, and I mean, that is, it is kind of an unfortunate thing where I think it's such a beloved role. But, as far as looking at the dude's work, it's like, man, you have to see the other stuff that he's doing because he's
Right,
fucking
he's a
incredible.
fucking actor. He's not
Yeah.
Ash.
Yeah. Yeah, boy, that's got to be such a gift and a curse, I would imagine.
Yep. Yep.
So moving on here, as far as with touching one last thing on the special effects, and Bob Kurtzman, my man, tell us about the first effects that you saw for the movie, and maybe some alterations that you saw with various gags from from the script ideas to what he ended up coming up with for the movie.
Andy's original script was much more close to something like that FX show, The Strain. It was sort of zombies with like tentacles, and I wanted to steer away from that. So when I sent Bob some ideas, he came back with some sketches, and I was like, "Oh fuck yeah, man! This is gonna be fun." And I think one of the first sketches he sent back was the big monster at the end. And Andy and I were just like, "Are you got to be kidding me with this thing? Like, yeah, let's go for it."
How did that end up get that ending sequence? How did that end up getting filmed? Just as far as with
That's a guy. That's a fucking guy in a suit. Bob and his team made that suit, and we shot a guy against the green screen. Somebody was like, "That CGI at the end is terrible." I'm like, "Dude, that's not CGI. That's a fucking guy in a suit, man. That's like Stay Puft. That's like Stay Puft shit,
Oh my God, that is insane. That's
Yep.
awesome. I
Yep.
absolutely love that. And I mean, because for people watching the movie still, I don't want to spoil it, but that end came and I was like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah,
what
I
just
mean,
happened?
obviously, it's there's a level of ridiculous that you have to sort of just
And
sort of
perfect.
laugh.
It's I mean the chef's touch. That
Yeah,
was so funny. Oh my
we loved
God.
it. We loved it.
There's a mention online with different people mentioning something about a Curse of Chucky reference. Is there something that what was the story behind that?
Oh yeah, that when they're in the break room changing the channels, it's the Bircher changing the channels, and he gets to the last channel, and the little girl's like, "I don't want to die." Chucky says, "We're all gonna die," and we put that in.
Oh shit. Okay.
We put that in. I think Devin got cast in Chucky like in the middle of post production, and I was like, "Dude, we have to use Chucky." And
That's so sick.
Don Mancini, bless him, the guy's a fucking saint. He like emailed, I forget who owns the rights, Universal, and he was like, "Let these guys use this clip, please."
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And so he was cool with it and everything.
Oh yeah, man. Oh
Damn,
yeah,
that
yeah,
rules. That
yeah.
rules.
Fucking
That's
talk about sweetheart. You know what I mean?
I haven't run it on my TV again right now, so I'm gonna have to go back and get to that part there and watch. I completely missed that. I
And
kept seeing people online talking about it.
I could be wrong, but I have to go back and I'll ask Devin today to confirm. I'm pretty sure that Devin told me the little girl in Curse of Chucky talking to her mother is the same girl that played his daughter in Hunter x Hunter.
What?
I think. Yes.
Weird.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
Huh. All right.
Yeah.
I'll have to go and check that out. Jeez, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, and even seeing Ivana from Pan's Labyrinth, and then seeing her in this movie, different people mentioning, the reference to that movie. I'm like, who the hell would that have been? I'm like, holy shit, that's the little girl. It's
Yeah,
insane.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy. And so as far lastly here, I wanted to touch on, with the movie, if you could have kept anything from the set, what would have been and why? Maybe for a personal collection, maybe for something to have up on, sitting on the wall there, or if you did keep something. What was it and why did you keep it?
I didn't keep anything because I'm terrible at keeping shit. I just am terrible at even owning physical media. I'm so messy and I'm so haphazard and thank God for digital stuff because I'd lose everything anyway. If I could have kept anything, hands down, I would have kept after Emmett, Bruce makes his speech and takes his tie off, and then Emmett pops up and his head kind of cracks open, and fucking when he lifts his head up and he's in like the full Beaker vulture makeup, I would have
Uh-huh.
kept that and put it on like a mannequin head and left it in my house.
Oh
So
my God.
Bob, if you're watching, please send that to me.
That is, was that a concept from him as far as with the vulture head?
Well,
How did
it
that come
was
about?
when Andy sent me the script. I was like, Andy, I feel like everybody has Walking Dead fatigue. I said, let's try to come up with something a little more original. And I said, these people that are trying to get all these fucking deals, they're more like bloodthirsty vultures. And I put together a sketch in Photoshop of this like hulking guy with like purple and orange skin and black feathers. And Andy was like, oh my God, let's do that. So and I said that to Bob, and it was a collaborative effort.
Oh my God, that's amazing. And one more thing that comes to mind too, as far as with the effects, is the insane spider web esque type. What the hell was that shit that's coming out that they spit on
I will admit, that's one thing I was not ultimately happy with how it turned out, because
Oh really?
well, not, I mean, it's okay, but the problem is like, we're a low budget movie. We didn't have a VFX supervisor, so it just didn't come out the way that I wanted. Because if you go online after this interview and you Google uh, worm mouth of horrors, there's this worm that has this white thing it shoots out, and it sticks and then grows and sticks and grows, and that's what we want to do. And we did our best, but if we had another $1,000,000, it would have looked really the way that I wanted it to. But it's still fun. I still had a good time with it.
Oh man, I thought that was awesome. I thought
Oh,
that was
thank
so
you.
cool. Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah.
that was
And
definitely one thing that
here's what's
stuck with
fun.
me.
Here's what's funny about that. You think about a guy like Bob Kurtzman, who, you have to have a little bit of knowledge of like anatomy and physiology to be a guy like Bob, because you're dealing with muscles and tissue. So I'm talking to Bob one day, and I was like, yeah, and I want him to have like this white thing that comes out of their mouth, and he's like, oh, you mean a proboscis? I was like, a what? He's like, Bob, he's like, such like a Midwestern like crutch. Yeah, he's like, yeah, like a proboscis, like a proboscis. I'm like, what? But that's what it's called.
Oh no shit! He knew exactly. Yep, no,
Bob
I'll
he's the
get that
shit,
figured
man.
out for you.
He's the shit. Yeah. Yep.
Oh my God, that is insane. Look, man, this has been absolutely awesome. I really appreciate the insight. I've recently reached out to Bob as well too, so I'm hoping to be able to have him on to talk the special effects
Great.
in the movie because I had such a fun time with this. And yeah, I messaged you the other day too with the VHS that I think it's Witterant came out with, and I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
So bummed that I missed out on that. So I'm
Yeah.
glad to see that, the people I think that really this movie was meant for have been attaching to it and loving it. And
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure, 100%.
yeah.
Well,
Thank you very much for the
When you talk to Bob, tell him I want that Emmett head for my house. So.
Okay, I sure will. Hopefully I get that figured out, and I'll have him on. And
Yeah, he's
we'll
actually
talk
stuck
that
in
for sure.
he's actually stuck in Jamaica right now. Him and his wife. His wife tested positive for COVID while they're in Jamaica, so they have to quarantine for like 10
Oh
days or
no,
something. So just shoot me a message or whatever, and I'll connect you with Bob.
what a nightmare. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, man. Thank you.
No
This has
problem.
absolutely been awesome, and I appreciate the time today. Thank you
No, we'll do it again for sure.
for sure. All right, man.
Thanks, man.
Take care.
Yeah.
Yep. See ya. What?
He's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi, lo-fi, a horror guy. Yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.